started. There we go. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ann Nutter-Kaufman. I'm a manager in our teacher quality department at the National Education Association, and we are very glad for you to be joining us this evening. Just wanted to, and of course I put my notes somewhere else. That's always super helpful. Just want to flag that we can offer you a certificate for the webinar, which we will tell you all about at the very end. We are recording the webinar, so if you didn't catch something, which at the end of the day, I know it's very hard to absorb a lot of information, so you can go back and watch it at your pleasure, and they will be posted in the next few days on our NEA.org website. So I am going to pass it to our executive committee member joining us tonight, Hannah Vandering. Hannah?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us and spending some of your time for a very exciting topic that we're going to be covering tonight. And we'd like to begin, as we always begin our meetings, by acknowledging that we meet on the lands that are traditionally served by the Native peoples. And we honor America's first peoples, all elders, past, present, and emerging. And I reside in Oregon, and I just want to lift up that in my area, it was the Kalapuyan people who have lived in this land for over 14,000 years. And they have survived through hardship of the plague that was brought to the area, and they are actually thriving right now, and they do a great deal of work to promote quality public education in Oregon. And we do honor the Kalapuyan people and thank them for all that they've done and honor them. So this evening, you are here tonight and you are going to be, that's me, I'm an elementary PE teacher. That's who I really am, from Oregon. And I'm super excited to serve you on the NEA Executive Committee. We are here, we represent 3 million educators across the country and public service workers who go to work every day to make a difference in the lives of others. So thank you for what you do every day. And we look forward to sharing some information tonight from two amazing members who are going to share some of their expertise. Our topic this evening is assessments, formative and summative from a distance. And this is a result of what members have asked us to provide, and we look forward to providing this information and continuing to learn from you what's most important to you in your environment and what we can do to assist you in being the very best professional that you can be in helping our students. We offer information through a website that we've created, educatingthroughcrisis.org. That's educatingthroughcrisis.org. Please make sure you go check that out. We are not endorsing any programs or products this evening, but we're merely sharing possibilities of products and ideas that may help you in your journey to help your students learn in an online space. So please, there's going to be space for questions about these, and we can follow up with you after the webinar as well. Our members are the experts that are going to help us find a path to doing what we need to do to provide the best education for each and every one of our students during this difficult time. And again, we want to thank our two facilitators, Ellen and Crystal, who are going to help us this evening. At the end, we're going to ask you, because we are a learning organization, we're going to ask you to fill out a short evaluation, and it's really important that you give us your feedback so that we can learn how we can improve each one of our sessions that we provide for you. So make sure that you fill out that survey. And with that, I want to turn it over to two amazing educators who are going to help us and guide us through some conversations this evening. We have Ellen Brooks and Crystal Jasklinen. Did I do anywhere close?
You did it very good, Justin.
Well, thank you for joining us and doing all that you're doing to help us be the best professionals we can. It's all on you. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Just a reminder about the NEA mission statement that has been reiterated, right? And know that this is a member benefit. And thank you all for coming and participating. And there's a lot of options out there for you. As we go through tonight's webinar, we have a large group. We have almost 300 people in here today. That's so exciting. So we're going to be keeping your camera and mics off, but please post questions in the Q&A, and we're going to be using the chat feature a lot. Ellen and I have done this presentation quite a few times, and it's most exciting for us when you all are actively involved and asking questions and collaborating and sharing ideas in the chat. So please try to ask questions concisely. We have some fabulous additional members that are here to help us out with that. And I'd like to give a shout out to Sarah Van Loo and Lori Greenfield. Am I missing anyone that's helping us out, Ellen?
Those are our extra hands on deck from different presenters. So thank you for being here. Yes.
And we'll stick around for a few minutes after the webinar for any questions that don't get answered throughout. And obviously, we will be trying to answer as many as we can all throughout today. So who are we? Ellen, go ahead.
My name is Ellen Brooks. I am in the midst of my 7th year of teaching. I am currently a 6th grade teacher in Monroe Public Schools. I had the absolute pleasure and honor of being an Ann Arbor public school teacher before I moved home to Monroe. And that is where I got really invested and learned a lot about EdTech and was part of a program there to help teachers just learn how to incorporate these things meaningfully and think about them. And it was wonderful. And it led to great opportunities like this and to my friendship with Crystal.
Thank you so much. My name is Crystal, Ms. J to the kids, because that's a big, long Finnish last name. I am in my 21st year of teaching. God, I'm old. I feel like that ages me every time I say it, which is totally okay. I've loved every year of it. And I love integrating EdTech, and I've always had fabulous people out in front of me, pulling me along. And I'm blessed that I hopefully can be that for you all alongside Ellen tonight. And I just want to say we're going to throw a lot of ideas at you tonight. But if you just take one and try it tomorrow or try it next semester, that is totally okay. Because when I started running, someone told me, Crystal, forward is a pace. And that sticks with me. So find something that works for you and take that on today. So here we go.
Well, please notice also, just so you know, we did include Twitter handles and emails, like contact us. We are happy to partner with you in thinking, and my email that's up there is also helpful. If you feel like you're an expert in an area and you'd really love to bring some expertise to fellow educators, I'm one of the coordinators helping out with that initiative. So if you are feeling super inspired, like shoot me an email, just saying, quick plug.
Good plug. Today, our agenda, and we're going to be flying through this in our next 50 minutes together. We're going to briefly introduce 2 frameworks that help us think about why and how we integrate EdTech. We're going to fly through a ton of ideas, looking at all the different tools and possibilities that are out there. We're going to briefly plug the idea of feedback literacy, which has absolutely changed my practice. And then we're going to take a moment to rethink summative assessment and grading. And then this presentation, as you can see in the chat, is all available for you. And there's tons of additional resources and links for you available to explore and keep for yourself. And as Ellen said, hit us up. If you are not in this alone, we are here to thought partner with you. So thank you for coming. And the first thing we'd like to talk to you about is TPAC. If you're not familiar, it's a really cool little framework that just blends all 3 of the pieces that are really important, right? Our pedagogy, our instruction, the things that we do really, really well already in the classroom, how we teach kids, our content, be that English, math, science, social studies, whatever that is, and then the EdTech tools, right? So the sweet spot is where those 3 come together. If you'd like to know a little bit more about TPAC, there are some resources for you here. So check those out. The other really inspirational framework in thinking about EdTech implementation is called the SAMR model. And that helps us think through, what are we using the EdTech for? So is it just substituting from, paper and pencil to a keyboard? Or, as we want to push you today, can we get up into these modification and redefinition areas where we get to create things that just couldn't have been done without all of this fabulous ed tech? So where our ideas are hopefully going to help you dream up into this transformation stage in the SAMR model, but check it out. There's a lot of research around that framework as well. So just a reminder, right? This is being recorded. If you're missing any links or anything, we are happy to help you with that in the chat or in the Q&A. And now we're going to get into the time to dream. So as we get going, we wanted to give a couple of definitions that everybody, I'm certain, in this room is very familiar with, but just as a grounding framework for all of us. So just a reminder of what is formative assessment, and Hattie defines it as any activity used to assess the learning progress of what's happening, right? This is the meat of what we do as teachers, those check-ins with kids to see, did you get it? What do you already know? And where can I extend you? Feedback then is like number 3 on Hattie's list of like the most influential teacher moves. And that's the good stuff that we give back to kids to help them improve their performance. So as we go through today, we want you to think about that framing question of like, how might I redesign and redefine my uses? We're sure you're already doing these things. You're already formatively assessing and you're already providing feedback. So how can we do that differently? Be that more effectively, be that more creatively? That's where we want to push you today. So the question we want you to walk through today's presentation with is, what if? Use this STEM as you watch. So you will, by the end of this, hopefully see and dream about tons of different possibilities. You will absolutely experience different possible tools. And since we've done this a few times, we can predict that you will likely feel overwhelmed with the possibilities. And that's why we want you to stick with the what if and contact Ellen or I if you get stuck on the how to. That will absolutely come later.
I think that this next slide is full of great, standard buzzwords for assessment. We know these words: quizzes, drafts, entrance and exit slips. These are really common methods that we all are familiar with to some degree when we're trying to learn more about our students. And we're just trying to get a handle on what are they thinking? What do they know? Where are their misconceptions? All of those elements that go into assessment. We know assessment is complicated. So today, we're going to do a lot of modeling of different ways to think about how we can do this assessment, but I'm just going to say it one more time. We really want you to challenge the way you're thinking about what we mean when we say a quiz, what we mean when we say an entrance or an exit slip. So we're actually going to go through each one of these, give some examples of tools that might be helpful to you, and try to flip your thinking a little bit, especially in this hybrid virtual space, on how we can really get to know our students and what they're thinking and knowing and learning and growing and all of those great things that they're doing.
So the first type we're all familiar with is the traditional quiz, right? Those quick checks for understanding and demonstrations of knowledge that we ask kids to do. The possibilities for quizzes in a digital format are endless. Of course, there's Google Forms, there's quizzes, which we're going to see more of later. There's Quizlet, which is great for vocabulary and flashcards. There's Kahoot, which quizzes, if I'm honest, as an educator, has taken over my love of Kahoot and taken my #1 spot just because of the freemium changes. Edpuzzle is great for video, inserting video and questions alongside it. Insert Learning is a really great tool that you can use to make documents, online documents, interactive with students. And the one we're going to focus on today is this fabulous little utilitarian tool called AutoDraw. And I don't even remember where I learned about it, but I am not an artist. And the idea of auto draw is really powerful if you use sketchnoting in your class. So sketchnoting is, instead of just asking for written feedback, you're also asking for images and drawings. So it's almost like a multimedia report of what you're doing. And so what auto draw does is it gives you a blank piece of paper, and shameless plug, not so shameless plug for Just Mercy. If you haven't read it, it's the best book I've read in the last 5 years, and I'm a voracious reader. So I imagine I'm creating a sketch note for the book Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. And it's the story, he defends wrongfully convicted people on death row. And the book covers stories about the work that he does. And so here's the coolest thing about AutoDraw. Of course, you can add text and you can add images, but this little tool, for me, who isn't an artist, so what do I think of when I think of, look at how squiggly my lines are, right? Oh gosh.
Trackpads.
Am I even drawing, right? Oh, look, it guessed that I am drawing a cell. That is so the most amazing part of AutoDraw for me. And then you can see, if you start drawing up at the top, if you didn't see it, right? So it's guessing all of these things that it could be. So I don't have to be an artist, and I can capture these. So this doesn't interact with other things, and you would have to download in order to share in some ways, but it's a fabulous little tool to bring in that alternate, that non-linguistic representation. So what if, here's an idea, instead of you creating it's totally free. Instead of you creating all of the formative assessment questions and ideas, you turned that over to students, right? And you had them create the questions on any of these tools and give the answers, so that then you as a class can use all of these either as a review or and vote on the best ones. But like, as we think about how do we do all of this work in the virtual world, asking kids to ask questions is such a powerful tool. So it doesn't have to be all on us. And if even in the traditional, very traditional quiz and test world, I stole this from Twitter and I should find the person, but the new, my new favorite quiz question is to ask at the end, what do you know about this topic, or what have you learned about this topic that wasn't in the quiz questions? And just give kids an open space to demonstrate all that they know. So that's some ideas for quizzes. And moving on is drafts. So
I will say really briefly that we recently have been trying to up our vocabulary. It's been really low scoring in my district and in my classroom. So we chose 25 words for them to kind of like experiment with throughout the month of November. And then at the end, we had a random generator. They randomly generated 4 of those words, and they had to create a scene on AutoDraw that included those words. So then they could share their scene with one another. They could share their screen, and they could describe, this is a slender catapult, whatever the words were. They were outrageous and they were really great. So the kids were having to apply those words using AutoDraw to bump up their vocabulary skills. So instead of just matching definitions, they were creating a little piece of art, and there was no pressure. They could include clip art or actual drawing with their mouse or their trackpad and the AutoDraw. It was really a great way to get them to create their own sort of
meaning. So
meaning.
In making it visible, they have 4 squares that they use for vocabulary acquisition, right? And one of them is to make a drawing, and one of them is to make a simile. And you could totally use AutoDraw for that.
Perfect.
So good, so good. So hopefully you like AutoDraw. Next up, the English teachers in the room, but everybody, right? Writing across the curriculum. Writing is embedded everywhere. So what do we do with all of this writing? And what I really have learned in my 20 years is that I did it wrong for a long time, admittedly. Feedback needs to be given before I give any sort of grade. So what can that look like? There's a ton of tools, right? What about using Flipgrid and having kids show their work and talk about it? So again, trying to diversify how much just text and writing we're doing. We can bring in speech and audio. Cami is absolutely a wonderful annotation tool for that kids can share their documents. But Floop, we're going to hear a little bit more about feedback literacy, a great little tool where you can keep and add comments. Math teachers, you're really going to like Floop. I'm sticking though, and I always will. I am in love with Google Docs and the possibilities. So I want to show you one of my students' work. And what's cool about this is obviously you can see all of the different times that this student got feedback from a Writing Center tutor. But additionally, they embedded a Flipgrid video to introduce themselves as a tutor. So that's not a hot link because student privacy, but you can see the tutor gave the feedback up here, and you can see all of the different times that the students interacted in their Google Doc. So our what if in terms of drafts is, what if we valued giving and getting and using feedback as much, or if not more, than the final product, right? For a long time, we've said, turn in your essay, turn in your, and really the skill that I've come to learn kids really need to improve upon, myself included, is that editing and revision and getting a lot of feedback so that they can improve as writers. Ellen?
I love the idea of giving feedback, and I know that it's hard, but something that's not as hard but still time consuming in a weird way are those polls and surveys that we do. Like when you're just like, oh, I just need to know really quickly, it still takes so much time to set up and get to them and get back. So what is the purpose of a poll or a survey? Well, we want to get their opinions, get some of that APK knowledge, make connections. One of the biggest reasons I like polls and surveys is so I can spot those kids that are like the outliers with like, they're completely thinking a different way than I would, which needs to be addressed. So that's one of my favorite ways to use a poll or a survey. And there are lots of great ways to do this. And depending on the one you choose, of course, it'll be more or less time effort for you. I love to pick a tool and like frame it out and then reuse it again and again and only change it every so often. Familiarity breeds ease and winds the clock back for you. So Padlet, Mentimeter, Polev, Kahoot. These are great little check-ins that we can use. If you haven't heard of dot storming is, think of a very, very utilitarian, black and white, very basic sort of like quick survey. Pear Deck, which is like the most fun you're going to have using slides in your whole life. My kids are like, are we doing one of those pair slides? I'm like, yeah, we are. And they get really excited because they're interactive, which are very cool. Plickers is a great tool. And there is, if you're a Plickers user, a Plicker is like a code that, depending on the way that you orient the code, you're saying which answer you've chosen. It's great tactile answering in the classroom. You capture it for free on your phone. It's a little tricky with the distance learning, but doable. They have some workarounds for you. So if you're a Plickers lover like I was, there are some options for you as a hybrid or distance educator at the moment. But I would say one of my favorite things on the planet is Quizzes. Quizzes is a platform that is not just, hey, can you answer these questions? It is a platform that allows students to review all of their answers, have flashcards, look at fun, silly memes, use little like weapons on each other to slow each other down or give themselves extra points. It can be asynchronous. It can be synchronous and live with your class. It's a really amazing tool. And the great other thing about Quizzes is that they're super fast and easy to create for yourself. There are a billion of them out there that you can just grab and use. And there's even a freemium version now that kind of gets Ed puzzly, where you can sort of add of video and content. But basically, my love of quizzes is a poll and a survey. You can do multiple choice, you can do fill in the blank, you can do all kinds of different answer options. But basically what you're getting is like, what do you know, real quick, and giving immediate feedback on what they're thinking, or just hoarding it for yourself, which I love too. I love quizzes. I love it. And we do have a quizzes available for you to try a little later. Don't worry. Everything we talk about, we have links for you to either try it yourself or to go look at it. I promise. But we really want to sort of push you into that what if space and have you think about pre-assessments, right? What if we use these polls and surveys, a quick quizzes, to which does kind of like rank like, ooh, you scored the most points, you did it so fast, you're so fancy, you got 60% right, you got 30% right, you got 99. If you take those kids that are in the 90 range on a topic you haven't even taught yet, you can find those leader experts in your classroom that have confidence and skills in that area and utilize them in the classroom in your teaching. They can lead breakout rooms, they can design quizzes, they don't need all of the extra practice that's going into this time, so they can be a part of guiding the learning of their peers. That is the like creme de la creme of polls and surveys. We really have the opportunity to empower our students and to notice who's like killing it in this area and let them sort of like spread their wings and be a leader in their classroom, which is really kind of like what education should be, don't you think? I love that. So entrance and exit slips are up next. And with our entrance and our exit slips, one of the things that we really want to do, much like a poll or a survey, is we want to really know, like, okay, what do they know? What are they thinking? It has a lot to do with like the routine of the thinking practice. Like, how are we addressing this idea? How are we changing over time? And we want to stress the ability to make connections. So a lot of the tools that are great for entrance and exit slips are the ones that give students the chance to see each other and have a shared space of dialogue and thought. I know that in traditional classroom a few years ago, if they all filled out a tiny slip of paper and handed it to me and it sat on my desk for 2 weeks and then I threw it out, right? That doesn't help me, it doesn't help them. So if we transition to like everyone writes it on a sticky note and puts it on our shared wall, right? Like that's super fun. But we're on the computer. So guess what? There are great tools for you to facilitate these connections conversations online. So some possibilities for these tools, right? Summative, which I believe is mostly for older people, right, Crystal? Like the middle school, high school kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, not for the littles. Formative has lots of great tools, including like a drawing tool and a typing tool and all of that. There's really cool live components to that. Pear Deck, again, super interactive. This is something that you can add on to your slideshow that students can then click and drag and type and be interactive all at once. And then Padlet is the last tool on the list and the one that we have an example for you. So Crystal's going to show us this Padlet, which is so cool. So she's labeled this her what if space, and she's made some different categories, and you can organize your Padlet however you want. It could be a free-for-all, it could be like a timeline, it could be organized by headers. You get to decide if new content is at the top or the bottom. But basically, to create a post, you just click. You click anywhere on the Padlet. You click, there's also sometimes like a little crayon in the bottom or a plus sign. And the great thing about a tool like Padlet is it allows students to express their thinking in so many ways. So it's not just text. They could add their own link. They could search Google through Padlet without going to an external link or tab. They can snap a quick picture, take a video of themselves, record just their voice, record their screen, do a quick drawing. All of these are built into the Padlet itself. So students don't have to go and do work somewhere else and then bring it back here. They can do all the work inside of the Padlet itself. In my classroom right now, we are doing a lot of research and informational text reading and writing. And we have a Padlet of like just like what is informational text? How do we cite resources? Things like that. And students are able to go and take a screen grab or show their examples. And it's this beautiful sort of space for them to keep changing their thinking about this topic as we keep going. When you actually create the Padlet, which Padlet does, it newly sort of is a freemium service in that you are, you have a certain number of Padlets, it's around 3, just available to you to use and recycle, and then create another one at any given time for a small fee. For the year, I believe you can have as many Padlets as you want going at the same time. Is that right, Crystal?
Yep, absolutely. So what
Mhm.
I do honestly is I've never paid for it. So I just delete really old Padlets so that I haven't used up my full space on all of my Padlets. And I will say, just to reiterate exactly what Ellen was talking about, the Padlet has been really responsive and growing and improving. And so if you're looking for one tool that you really want to dream and think about doing a lot with, Padlet might be your choice today to play with, because you can bring kids in small ways, and you can scaffold how kids learn and how they express themselves all within that single tool. So that's really huge.
You can also do a lot of the setup work yourself, and as a slow roll in, especially if you have little people, instead of them using all those options to add content, they can just like or favorite or give stars or comments on stuff that you've loaded up. I know that in my district, our Encore, our special area teachers, music, art, they have a Padlet of like free choice activities for like families that are at home and would just like projects to do, like STEAM projects and things like that. They can jump on that Padlet, and there's just lots of different activities and resources for families who want to have more of those opportunities and activities at home. So it doesn't have to necessarily serve just as an entrance or an exit slip. We want you to think of Padlet as an opportunity for you to have a shared space that is as interactive and meaningful and deep as you need it to be for you and your class. And not every Padlet has to be super deep and meaningful and fantastic. You can use it for that one thing, get a little bit of information, and then delete it, right? Like take a look at it, take that screenshot and be like, bye. I believe that Padlet is online. I'm not sure you're able to utilize it in an offline mode. But one of the things that Padlet is great as a platform for is our what if thought. And when we come to these entrance and exit slips of thinking routines. So think how powerful it is to get students questioning. So instead of answering questions, really like asking the questions, that is a depth of knowledge that we can all appreciate. And there's a great link here to the question formulation technique that you might want to check out that has more information about gearing students towards that sort of like questioning philosophy, as opposed to just having the answer and producing their own like fact, right?
Absolutely.
And thinking around.
We have a couple of people just to differentiate. I am generally secondary. So those of you that are wondering about the littles, that's how I lovingly refer to them. Ellen is your expert, and she has successfully used almost every single one of these tools in her practice with students.
So I taught first grade for 5 years, and I've used almost all of these. AutoDraw wasn't a thing then, but I've used almost all of these tools successfully with first graders, especially if you're able to provide them with a bookmark or a ready, like if they're already used to going into a space like a Seesaw or like a class website or like their Schoology account, whatever your district is using, their Google Classroom, depending on how you're giving things to your littles. If you can just put the link there and direct them towards it and model opening it and try to always have it in the same place, connect it to an image, right? That matches, that kind of thing. Use those strong teacher practices you know of. But first graders are absolutely capable of like incredible things. And they really love, especially tools like Flipgrid that can be just amazing, but a lot for like a little person. Like they can just take a picture of their drawing really quick by holding it up on the Padlet and just, when they're practicing their anything. So Padlet, I mean, like all tools, it takes time to roll out and to teach, and you want to let them play with it first, but it is very accessible for little people.
Absolutely. And moving along, because oh my God, it's 7:36 already. And as she said, I do think most of these are online, but we can get creative about what is available or how to make things hybrid. And Melissa, in terms of your students, I think it's less the tool and more the routine. So thinking about what tool, so I'm going to push you towards Flipgrid or Padlet, because they have, they're really easy to use, and they have a ton of different ways that kids can interact and demonstrate their knowledge. So moving, the next type of formative assessment that is my new favorite is conferences. Ellen?
So a conference, the heart of it is to have a dialogue, right? We want to talk about a student and how they're doing and what they're thinking and their participation and all of those things. But we really want it to be more student-centered. Those are the really powerful moments where a student is the one that can take ownership and say, this is what I know, this is what I'm struggling with, this is what I'm working really hard on. So when we think about conferences, there's a lot of different ways that we can do that and facilitate that online using EdTech. Breakout rooms in a Zoom are absolutely a thing, or even an extension with Google Meet. There's lots of different ways to have little one-on-one moments with students. I try to fit them in all the time, but it's really challenging. I have 29 students in my class, and it's really tough to have those little moments with them. So one of the tools that has just made a really big difference in my practice is Flipgrid. So Flipgrid, if you haven't used it since the beginning of the school year, has some great new updates. And Crystal has actually linked for you some of her students' videos, and you should totally check them out, because this is like a culmination of a project for them, right? And they were like showing off all their know-how, and it's gorgeous. So please watch those. But the great thing about Flipgrid is that it's as public or as private as you make it. It's very secure for your students. It gives them a platform where they can record themselves, record their screen, record just their voice. They can mask their face. They don't have to show their face if they don't want to. There are great filter options, and they can also now respond to one another using typing in text instead of just video. But I know we heard from pre-K, our littlest. If you can have a little kindergartner, a little pre-K student get on there and say as many words that have the B sound in them as they can think of, they can just hit that record button and have 1 minute or 10 minutes or anywhere in between and just bear or ball or whatever, you know how they are, and they just rattle it off and it happens. And then you can even have students respond to that video with their own B sounds, right? For older kids, obviously, we can get a little bit more into like actual legitimate, like sharing of work and thinking and understanding. And how powerful is it for those students not only to see one another, but to be able to show their parents and their teacher, not in the exact live moment, but at any point in the future, who can come back and look at that and respond to one another. Because it's hard in the moment to reach 29 students at once. But if they all have their own space where they can come and they can record, and you can come, and then there are shared spaces where they can have time for each other, and their parents have access. This is a way that we can have these moments, even if they're not at the same exact second of the day. So we really want you to think about how reflective and wonderful it would be to flip your practice so that parents and guardians can come to you during a conference, during a quick check-in, and you can say, take a look at what they think and what they know, and they can hear it from their own students.
That could be a culminating project, right? From littles all the way up. Yep. Give them specific prompts and have them, record an interview of themselves with all they learned. That just makes my teacher heart happy.
And rubrics are really powerful when you do that. Try to keep rubrics in mind. My students did a map making project, and the rubric was a lifesaver because it was like a lot. Rubrics.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Ellen and I do another webinar about Flipgrid too. So we're all about Flipgrid. But the other thing, one of the biggest downfalls is how do I watch all of that content, right? And so be very thoughtful about what it is. Where are you making this a community space, or where are you using this for assessment? If you are using it for assessment, you want to be aware that that is going to be content and time that you're spending to watch all of these, but it doesn't all have to be used just for summative assessment. It could be a space where kids collaborate and give one another feedback and improve their thinking around it. So our final piece about assessment types that I have taken on over the past, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years. And again, it's just really changed my practice and improved it, is self-assessment. John Hattie calls it self-reported grades, and I've tried it out. And you have all these worries. I had all these worries, but what I found is that students are more critical on themselves, and they're super honest, and they're very highly aware of their gaps and their strengths and where they need to fill in. And it's changed. It's taken every grade battle off the table until I'm able to get rid of grades. So why do we use self-assessment, right? That's that super powerful student-centered meta piece where we can stop making ourselves the center, having all of that pressure, and turn it into being a student-centered learning space and empower them to, you know, take control over their own learning. So again, there's a ton of possibilities for this. Flipgrid, obviously, which we've heard about a ton already. And you're going to see a couple of my Google Docs and Google Forms. Sketchnote would be absolutely powerful for this, right? Where we're allowing kids to make those non-linguistic connections. So our artists are coming in with it as well. I haven't used Flippity a ton. Ellen, can you briefly give a description?
We always put Flippity in here. Flippity, when you open it up, it looks like it's like from the beginning of the internet, like the dawn of time. But it is great at building out flashcards, Jeopardy games, scavenger hunts. It's basically a Google spreadsheet that it teaches you which parts to edit, and then you create your own spinning wheel, or you create your own. I did a scavenger hunt on Constitution Day for my kids with facts, and they were like unlocking the rooms by figuring out the answers. And since then, I've had 2 kids make their own. So Flippity, it's very sort of utilitarian seeming, but also super easy to learn, and it creates mini games for you that are animated, which are really exciting and very cool. So highly recommend taking a look at Flippity. Make sure you follow the directions.
I became Google Form crazy a while ago, and I still am. So Google Forms and Google Spreadsheets are my new best friend. And you're going to see some examples from me about what those can look like in terms of student self-assessment. And it's just so powerful. So what if we didn't grade anymore? What if students graded themselves? There's this whole movement called ungrading. Oh, you can't see it. There you can. Called ungrading. And like, let's just take that off the table. And there's really exciting conversations happening about it. And you're going to hear a little bit more about that later. But what if we flipped our practice to be more about student self-assessment and guidance along those lines? And what we've provided for you here are Google self-assessment form that I've used in my class. And in this virtual world, every other Friday, I do this self-progress checklist in just using simple drop-down menus in Google Sheets. So you're going to have some time, maybe at the end, and I apologize, normally we have this out for an hour and a half, so we would give you time for try it yourself, but we're going to direct you back. All of these are live links. And unfortunately, we don't have time to give you time to play tonight, but please take the time. I will fix that. And take the time and check it all out here. Is it the
The first one for the Google form. Another way I've been doing self-assessment with my students is I used a Google Doc and I created a table on the top. So we're a Google Classroom class. So my students are able to go in and look at their assignments from Writer's Workshop, which is its own class, math, which is its own class, tally up their scores and really notice, like, these are my on grade level scores, these are my below grade level scores, these are my missing, tally them up, and then do some reflection on where they're struggling or having trouble. And then those those little assessments are available for parents who might have questions. And it really highlights what students should be working on when they come to tutor time, which has been really helpful because they're looking at their own work. But we want to remind you that even though we can't set you free for the next 15 minutes to play and come back and ask us, every single one of these links is live. You click on any of these, it will take you to a resource that will help you learn about them. On the previous slide, those are specific examples from the modeling and the things that we showed you here today and now. So the try it yourself slide, when you click on these, they will go directly to examples of a quizzes, examples of a flip grid, so that you can see those at your own pace, at your own time. And they're totally available for you. All the links are live. They will be live forever. We'll make sure that that one link gets updated. Obviously, that's not a form that's being used anymore, so she'll put a new one in there. But that's what we do. We adapt, don't we? So all of those links are totally available, totally live anytime. And at the end of the session, if we have time to communicate about those, we absolutely will. Otherwise, you can always send us a message and we're happy to talk about that. But we really want to use our remaining time to talk about feedback literacy and really thinking about what this means to us as educators.
Absolutely. So as we promised, a brief introduction to this idea of feedback literacy. And this is really something that improved my practice greatly once I started thinking all about what am I doing wrong, right? I was that English teacher that put marks all over and then gave a grade. And I was like, but they never used my feedback. And so feedback literacy, you can see a couple of links here. Floop actually has a curriculum that they've laid out that's pretty decent in terms of how to teach students this skill. We assume that they know how to use our feedback or how to use feedback to improve. What feedback literacy says is, no, let's teach feedback literacy as much as we teach digital literacy, right? So let's teach students how to use the feedback that they're getting from us, from peers, from tutors, from whomever, make judgments and figure out, what do I want to use? What action do I want to take? What do I want to throw away? Definitely check out feedback literacy and just think about where in your practice or where in your classroom could you probably introduce this idea and save yourself a lot of headache over they don't use my feedback that I give them, especially in the virtual world. Right? Lots of feedback.
I'm laughing because it's so true. My feelings.
All right. Good.
No, keep going. Let's keep going.
Okay, so
we can talk all day.
I know.
Talk all day.
The beauty of Ellen and I, when we get going, is idea after idea after idea. So we have we're going to bring you back in, and we would like, oh, it's weird that they're zoomed in. Is that weird for anyone else? I didn't make any changes. So we're going to bring you back in.
The main presentation.
Yep, and I'm going to fix the Google form link as soon as I stop talking. So it will be available before the end of, before we all log off together. So before we start thinking about, okay, now what about summative assessments? We wanted to take this moment to just contextualize, what do we mean by this? Because we have a lot of ideas and assumptions and traditional holds in our belief system around what we're supposed to be doing or what we're told we're supposed to be doing. And research doesn't necessarily support those. So I'm going to read through 6 quotes, and I would like you to vote once the 6th is read. I would like you to vote on the one which resonated with you the most by just typing the number in the chat. So here's quote number 1 from Brookhart. An observation that many classroom teachers have made about their students. If a paper is returned with both a grade and a comment, many students will pay attention to the grade and ignore the comment. That's number 1. Number 2, grading by a now. Grading is almost always employed in order to control students and sometimes their teachers, force students to be accountable and sometimes their teachers, and measure or rank students and sometimes their teachers, either against each other or against a single standard. Each of these purposes for grading in classrooms is detrimental to learning generally and more harmful to many students of color and racial and linguistically diverse students. That's number 2. Number 3, Melanie Kitchen. There are so many ways that students can cheat. So if we're giving them just the traditional quiz or test, it's really easy for them to be able to just look up that information. It's a lot more difficult to cheat when you have to make something or do something, which is kind of getting at your point, your question, Ashley. Number 4, our results suggest that the information routinely given in schools, that is grades, may encourage an emphasis on quantitative aspects of learning, depress creativity, foster fear of failure, and undermine interest. Number 5, Alfie Cohen, one of the original writers, he wrote The Case Against the Zero. A B in English says nothing about what a student can do, what she understands, where she needs help. Moreover, the basis for that grade is as subjective as the result is uninformative. Even the score on a math test is largely a reflection of how the test was written, what skills the teacher decided to assess, what kinds of questions happened to be left out, and how many points each section was worth. And the last one, number 6, Audrey Waters, check her out on Twitter if you don't already know. I never met a student who was a snidely whiplash of cheating, twisting his mustache and rubbing his hands together with glee as he displayed callous and wanton academic dishonesty. But that's how so much of the educational software that's sold to schools to curb cheating seems to imagine students, all students, unrepentant criminals who must be rooted out and punished, guilty until Turnitin proves you innocent. So let's do a waterfall real quick. In the chat, which one resonates with you most? Quote 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Go ahead. Seen a lot of 2s.
A lot of 5s.
A lot of 5s, but we are all over the place.
It's funny, isn't it? How these all can speak to us, but a certain one like hits home. It's report card time for me. My report cards are due on Wednesday. So it's funny how I'm thinking about this in this moment of my life, as opposed to when we did the session earlier in the school year, Crystal. Even just my perspective from the moment has changed my thinking a lot.
Mine too. Thank you everyone for participating. And we include this because it's so imperative that we challenge the traditional ways of, and now is the time to rethink about, we've always done it that way, but is it even the best way to do it? So the fact that everybody could pick one and everybody has a little bit of, ooh, I hear that resonates with me, then you get it, right? And they're not even that you get it, that there's something in you as a teacher that says, I need to do something different. So
wherever you are in your career, whether you are in the first 10 years or you're many years on, whether you've been with the same kind of grade level or you've been all over the place, we can all agree that our purpose is to provide learning experiences for students and to help them to grow and understand in the ways that are best for them. So we can come back to Bloom's taxonomy from day one of teacher school. And what we really want to convince you in the root and the essence of our time here tonight is to think about redefining how we are elevating students thinking about their learning. So how can we push them up into that creative, evaluative, analyzing space? How can we design our assessments to be of service to students and not just checking off things on our administrative lists?
Oh, sorry. All my buttons
No.
moved. All right, as we're coming up here on the end, we don't have much time. So what we want you to know is that all of these same tools that we talked about in terms of formative assessment can be used for summative assessment purposes. And all of these are just different ideas of ways to make authentic assessment types using the tools, shifting from formative to summative. I don't remember the author and I should, right? But summative assessment should be determined by what a student is able to say that they know, right? Not by the timelines that we set for what those are. So everything that we just went over can be used summatively as well as formatively.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you want to get in a go ahead.
Like we haven't given you enough great links. Crystal is brilliant when it comes to these big pedagogical deep thinking. She reads everything. So these are all really, really great for you. She's compiled these. I've been reading them myself. Ever since we started this webinar, I have grown so much just by like pushing myself to consider these different options. So really, I highly recommend these links to you. Gamification guide was super helpful to me. And I especially also loved grading for equity. So I highly recommend those two, but those are all really good links for you.
Absolutely. Check it out. Hit me up. We can nerd out and talk about it.
Okay.
Oh, please take the time to give us some feedback on this exit ticket. It's very helpful to us. We love to know, how we can improve this session for you, how we can support you as you are meeting the needs of your students and your families all over the country. Please keep in mind this webinar has been recorded. There is a recording. It will be available to you in the next few days. There will also be a certificate of completion, and we're going to talk more about that now as we are wrapping up.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Crystal and Ellen. I am going to pass it to Hannah quickly to summarize and take us out. Hannah?
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Ellen and Crystal. The energy that you brought tonight was amazing. I was inspired. I got to tell you, I drew a turtle on the auto draw. I can't draw. I drew a turtle. So I'm super excited about that. I think what we learned tonight, we want to challenge ourselves. We want to think of the possibilities, and we want to explore the what ifs to help our students in their own self-assessments, because when students own their learning, then they are going to thrive. So you have done an amazing job of sharing so many tools. I'm sure that everyone is as overwhelmed as I am, but thankful for the time that you have given to put this together and for presenting tonight. So thank you to Ellen and Crystal. And finally, thank you to everyone who joined the call tonight. Thank you for being here, and thank you for all you do every day for our students, our members in public education. And with that, I'm going to turn it to Anne to finish us out and make sure you know where to get your certificate.
Thanks so much, Hannah. So everyone, as Ellen and Crystal said, and you can see it in the chat as well, this has been recorded. It will be available at nea.org/webinars. Please give us a few days, please. It will not be up tomorrow. I can guarantee you it will not be up tomorrow, but it'll probably be up by Thursday or Friday. We have to get things turned around and made that way. So please give us some time. From that page, there will also be directions of how you can access your own certificate for this particular webinar. So please be sure to do that. We are continuing this webinar series into the spring. The next webinar will be on, Ellen, are you talking to me?
No, sorry.
No, okay.
My cat is over there being really naughty. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. The next webinar is January, the second week in January on that Monday, which I can't remember what the date is. but it is that day. We will be promoting that series of webinars moving forward. We hope that you have a fabulous evening and holidays, and we will see you soon. Ellen and Crystal will stay on for a while, so if there are additional questions, you can go ahead and ask those in the chat, but otherwise, we are dismissed. Thank you so much.
I'd like to address one question that came up in the Q&A a few times. I know, Ashley, this is important to you. One of the challenges that we face is the security of testing and assessments and making sure students are the ones providing their work and they're not being influenced and they're not looking up resources or things like that. And that's part of why Crystal and I stressed to you so much to reevaluate what it means to know what your students can do. And we know that that's not always an option with administrative needs. There is no magic cure for making sure that your student is the one typing or your student is the one producing that work without any extra outside influences. There's no magic application or anything that can just make that happen for you unless you are paying for some kind of testing service, which even then, who can say if they're, it's really that, there are oversight things that you can do. Like I know my district pays for a service that allows us to see the screens of students' managed devices, things like that. But unfortunately, there's no great, there's no magic wand to have a fully secure summative assessment that I know of. That's a tricky one, and it's difficult to sort of face.
And I'm not sure who can answer it, but the first question in the NEA exit ticket provided just says Missouri.
So that's the state affiliate. So when we're asking for state affiliate, we're just asking. So for example, Crystal and I are both in Michigan. So our state affiliate is the Michigan Education Association. So they're asking you about your state level union or even your local, if that's easier for you. So for us, we would put MEA or Michigan Education Association. If you just put your state where you're currently residing, I'm sure we can figure that out as well. But it's just a helpful way to see where in the country people are asking certain types of questions so that we can try to come to your state and say, here are some things we think might help your teachers. So state affiliate is literally just, where are you? Who do you pay your union dues to?
Yeah,
so that we can
just an edit
this.
that'll need to be made because it says Missouri as the question instead of state affiliate.
Oh, mine says state affiliate when I open it.
Oh.
I hope
That's
someone
funny.
didn't accidentally change it.
I wonder if